Hello, I'm Pearl Howie, and this is my podcast, Pearl Escapes Fear of Success. And this is episode 2. What is fear? Now, it's a little bit windy, and I'm recording this in the woods because I like a nice visual. And you can also listen and watch this podcast on YouTube as well. So, what is fear? I guess we've all experienced fear, and coming at this, I've studied this with a lot of different wise men from around the world, and women, wise men and women, I used men in the human being term there, sorry about that. And we often get taught, especially when we start to step into spiritual practice or inspirational teaching and all these kind of things, that fear is a really bad thing. But my experience of fear is it's coloured and it's shaped by an awful lot of different things. And in recent years, that was travel. And that meant doing a little bit of research before I went to any country. And that meant being a little bit prepared and making sure I'd had my vaccinations and things like that. And so to a certain extent, there was an element of preparedness, that fear, if you like, really made me think about what do I actually need in order to be able to achieve something, in order to be able to do something. It's not to say I followed all the rules, and it's not to say that I did everything the way that I was told. I actually did it the way that felt right, and I followed my heart. And I don't think I can really talk about this without talking at the moment about coronavirus and the fear of that and the way that shaped our culture and our practices and our lives at the moment. So looking into fear, some people would say, there are inherited fears, all those kind of things. But what I've tended to find is in my life is that most of the fears I have been taught to me, and quite reasonably so, taught to me by parents who wanted to make sure that I didn't just go jump into the lake because it looked nice and blue, or parents who wanted to make sure that I ate right, so told me I had to eat a certain thing in a certain way, and certain fears about getting an education and making sure I applied myself so that I didn't fail at exams, things like that. And you can see in that respect that fear is a tool that we use a lot in life, and we use it with in business, we use it with our friends and family, and people try to use it on us. And very often people will say that fear is just the other side of love. And we can see that very, very clearly at the moment, the way that we're constantly saying to people, stay safe, the way that we're saying to people, stay home and I'll get your shopping for you, stay home and I'll get your medicines for you. And there's an awful lot of love that is being expressed in a fearful way. So we say, I'm concerned about you, I love you, do you have enough food, how are you feeling, do you have symptoms? And we're giving each other an awful lot of advice, whether we like it or not. And I think that's true, that fear is the other side of love. Another thing that I've experienced, and I don't know if you've experienced it as well, is that there's a great teaching, and I would really go with this, that fear is a great hider and is at the root of all other negative emotions. So, for example, if we feel angry, if we get angry at other people, we get angry at the situation, it's because we're fearful. If we get jealous, it's because we're fearful. Maybe we're fearful that we'll never achieve the same thing or get to have the same things. Jealousy. Oh, I said jealousy. Whoops, sorry. Anger. Sadness. Sadness is often derived from fear. So, for example, if we're fearful that we might not see people again, it's pretty sad when we say goodbye. And that can be very, very tough on all of us. So we could definitely say that negative emotions spring from fear and that feeling of fear. But I was thinking about this, and I was also thinking that fear is also, although it's a tool, we also use it as a plaything. We actually play with fear. And if you think about that, we have theme parks that are dedicated to creating the scariest rides because we enjoy getting scared. We have books and movies and TV shows that are all about making you feel a bit scared, possibly safely scared, but we kind of enjoy that fear. And I do wonder sometimes when we, and myself included, when I'm going online and I'm looking at the news and I'm looking at those things, is a part of me kind of enjoying this fear? Because then I switch the TV off and I'm safe in my home and I feel relieved and I feel safe. So there's a lot about fear that we can talk about and look at. And I would really like this podcast episode to be about asking you to question what you call fear in your life. What are the things that you are afraid of? Or what are the other negative emotions that you're experiencing constantly? And is there a route from that negative emotion back down to fear, do you think? Maybe, maybe not. But the other thing I was thinking is fear itself is very closely related to another emotion, which we call excitement. And I did something really exciting yesterday. I can't tell you about it because it's secret, but it could be big. It could be really exciting. And that experience was very joined up. So I had to get up and I had to leave the house and I had to put on clothes, proper clothes. And I had to get a train and I had to put my face mask on and navigate getting a ticket and all these different things. And then I had to get to a place and I had to observe all the social distancing, and then I had to do a tryout for something. And so there were all kinds of safety things and fearful things about, and honestly the people on the train did not make it less scary, because there was a lot of people being drunk on the train and not wearing face coverings. And even when I came out, there was some really dodgy characters screaming illegal things down the phone. I'm like, this is really dodgy. This is really dodgy. So there was some negative fear. There was, negative fear in there, and moments of thinking, I can't wait till this is over. I can't wait to get back home where I'm nice and safe. But there was also incredible joy and excitement about doing something I'd never, ever, ever done before. And what I found quite interesting was I guess I had been a little bit nervous, but I'd been practicing, and maybe that nervousness and that little fear had been pushing me to practice. But when I got there, a lot of the language and the conversations we were having with people were, are you scared? Are you scared? What do you think about this? And we're talking about different things. And I was just saying, I'm so happy. I'm so excited. I'm so happy. I'm so excited. And because I was so enjoying it and I was saying all these things, I did say, look, it's just a little bit nerve-wracking to actually be around human beings again, to be around people. And it's like, wow, it's like coming into a party that I haven't been to a party for months, And I really enjoyed it, but it was kind of like I was enjoying the excitement and the nerves. And I didn't let anybody else's dialogue about, are you scared? And I'm scared, and get into my head, because I was just like, this is cool, this is so cool, this is so cool, this is so cool. And then, of course, as soon as I finished, my knees went wobbly and I got the nerves afterwards. But it was a great joy, and it was a great experience and great fun. And very often in my life, and probably in your life as well, there have been experiences you may have had that could have been really joyous and really fun and really exciting. But we had just kind of gone from excitement and we'd started to get fearful. And I used to experience that all the time when I was going traveling, when I was going on holiday, and I'd be so scared about everything, and it would really get in my head, and I'd be like, have I packed the right things? Have I got all my stuff? Have I got cover for my classes? Have I done this? Can I afford to go on this holiday that I've planned? And it really, as I talk to other people very often, we would say, oh, I'm so scared, I'm going, and you think, well, hang on a second, when we were kids, we used to get so excited about going on holiday. It was just fun. So why do we get so scared of it? Why have we moved from excitement into fear? And I think the big answer to that is that our ego likes to use fear against us. It likes to keep us where we are, quite physically and literally, because it wants to keep us safe. It doesn't want us to explore. It wants to keep us safe because it's what we learned either as kids or as we were growing up. This is safe, this is safe. And it wants to keep us small and safe, partly for that reason, and partly because as long as we're scared, the ego's in control. So as we go on and as we go through our fears and as we break through our fears, we demolish them, and that's what I love about practicing fear of success. That's what I love about stepping into spaces that I'm really scared of, because the more I practice that, the more I practice doing the thing that I'm scared of, the fear goes away. And sometimes it happens the first time, sometimes it happens the 10th time. And sometimes it stops and then I go on holiday and I come back and the fear comes back because it's like, oh, you've been off for a week. Are you going to be able to do the things that you normally do? So we have all this fear and we have this ego that's trying to, keep us safe, and I see that so much looking around at the world. And so even yesterday, or the day before when I was talking about doing this tryout, and my mum was saying, oh, do you want to go on a train? That's quite scary. And do you think that's a good idea? And I was like, I've already kind of made this decision. I've already thought it out and I've assessed the risks. I'm not doing this in a stupid or unconsidered way or inconsidered way. I've planned it out and I know that it's still safer than me going to the supermarket. So I'm going to do this. And that's the thing that I've learned through travel, through business, through family even, through relationships, is that we can take that fear and we can hold it and we can honor it in such a way that we can kind of convert it into wisdom. The wisdom of, I'm not going to go for a walk right now without taking a bottle of water with me. I'm not going to go out for a walk without taking a hat and possibly sunglasses with me. I'm not going to come for a walk without putting suntan lotion on. And I'll probably take snacks as well. So it's things that we learn how to do things safely, but without letting that fear stop us from doing the things that are kind of that are in our heart. We don't let the fear stop us from following our path, going our way. And that way can be very different for different people. So one of the things that happens is that sometimes when we share our fears, that's really helpful and it helps us to overcome things. But sometimes when we share our fears, we create bigger fears. We make it bigger. We make ourselves more paranoid about life. And we start to fear things that really are quite low risk. And the thing is, life isn't safe. Just life isn't safe. But we can check the risks. And one of the things that happened, and I remember very clearly when coronavirus started to be a big issue in England, was we had actually experienced lots of big storms in February, I think. And I had learned, and I think we'd all learned, that you have to respect nature and you have to respect a storm. And if there's a storm warning and you hear that wind going, you know there's a time to go in the house and stay safe. And all I could really feel and think as things were getting quite serious here in England were, this is a storm. This is a storm coming, and we have to be wise and take cover, when a storm comes. And in the case of coronavirus, it was thinking about things like, do I have supplies, and do I, can I get through this time? Is everything set up for me to survive this storm? And now what we're starting to see is that the storm is abating. It's going down, but we have to be wise in how we come out of that storm. Because if you know anything about storms, you'll know that sometimes things get weakened in the storm and then they kind of fall, So we have to be, very aware as we come out, and we look around and we figure out not what the TV is telling us, not what the news is telling us, not even what our friends and relatives are telling us, because every day is a new day. And what was safe to do yesterday may not be safe today. And the reverse is true as well. So if I can teach you one thing about fear, it is to remember that above all things, we are animals. And we have instinct and we have intuition about what is safe to do. So don't force yourself to do something just because everyone else says, oh yeah, that's okay. Don't not do something if in your heart you feel it's safe to do so. And trust your own intuition, your own instinct. And it's funny, actually, I'm sitting here in the woods, and it's funny today, quite a few people seem to be coming around. I hope it didn't distract. But one of the things in my life that taught me a lot about fear was I moved, in 1994 to Wimbledon. And we have a great common there, wonderful big woods and common. But sadly, just before I moved to Wimbledon, a lady was murdered on the common. It was a terrible story. In broad daylight, she was out for a walk with her child. And it was one of those incidences that was just so shocking, and it really made the idea of walking on the common and through the woods really scary. And so for 15 years I did not walk through the common, even though I lived there. And then one day what happened was I went with my boyfriend and we walked through the common, and I thought, wow, this is amazing, this is beautiful. And I started to get comfortable and I started to go for walks, and it became a thing that I would do all the time. And then other people who lived in Wimbledon and who knew it really well would say to me, aren't you scared? Aren't you scared to go walking in the woods because of this terrible accident, this thing? And of course, by the time that I was really walking the woods all the time, it was about 20 years I'd been there. It was more than 20 years. And I realised how silly it was for me to have been so scared for so long. Because if you think about it, if I thought about it, I thought, well, what if you said you're not going to drive on a motorway that's had any accident? I think of that thing in Rain Man, the film with Dustin Hoffman, when his character says, I'm only going to fly Qantas because it's never had an accident. And that means you can't fly on any aeroplane. And it's one of those things that often the things that we think are dangerous are statistically less dangerous than other things. People used to say to me all the time when I was cycling in, where I lived, it was London, but it wasn't like central London. Oh, it's too scary. Oh, it's dangerous. I wish you wouldn't ride your bike. I wish you wouldn't ride your bike. But statistically, it was actually safer than travelling on a bus. More people were injured and killed, accidentally of course, getting on and off buses as passengers than cyclists injured in London. So very often we're afraid of things because they look dangerous or because people say, oh, it's dangerous. But if we look deeper, we see that it's not actually logical. It's not actually logical. So between logic and instinct, we can find some really good ways of handling our fear. And sometimes just honouring that fear and respecting that fear. You know, if we're fearful of something but nobody else is, maybe that fear's there for a reason, and maybe that's okay. And if we sit down and actually listen to that fear, we can often find out, where did it come from? Why am I afraid of this? Does this fear serve me any longer? Or is it time to let it go? And I believe that we always let go of our fears at the right time for us. And I'm trying to let go of a lot of the fears that I've built up over the last few months in a safe and sensible way. As boring as that may sound. I've done a lot of very radical things and travelled around the world and done all kinds of crazy things. But I've actually always done it with safety in mind and thinking safety first. Because as wonderful as all those things are to do, I'm really glad to still be here. And I'm really glad to still be around for my family and my friends, and for you guys too. So I'm going to keep listening to that fear and not being stupid, you know, because between being over fearful and stupid, there's a really nice middle way of just being wise, you know. And I think we can all get there if we actually try, if we focus on being wise instead of fearful. I really hope that helps. Remember, this is on YouTube if you like. Oh, and of course, if you want to learn more about fear of success and you just can't wait, the book's already out and available. And if you have problems getting hold of it, just let me know. And I hope there isn't too much wind noise for this. Okay, thank you so much. Take care. See you next week. I'm trying to switch it off.